After the incredible opening to this series that was The Duel, Star Wars Visions presents us with 2 consecutive episodes of, well, let's call it disappointing writing. But the great thing about flawed art is that we can leverage those flaws to understand how to hone our craft. And so for this video, I'm going to start with Star Wars Visions Episode 2 and break down where I think the writing fails so that you don't. Episode 2, Tatooine Rhapsody. Just to summarize this episode, and of course, warning, major spoilers, this is about a former Padawan who joins a band, which then falls apart because one of its founding members is pursued by Jabba the Hutt through Boba Fett, captured and sent for execution, but our former Padawan and now famous musician saves the day by rocking out in front of a huge crowd and in front of Jabba the Hutt and acquiring sponsorship from him along with the popularity of the crowd. Episode 2 rests on the character need of learning who they are. That is, the character has a need of discovering themselves. Now, this is a pretty powerful desire to have, and one that I think probably all of us can relate to. In some way or another, we've probably experienced this. But let's break down how creating character need should work. Need actually begins with what is sometimes referred to as the character's ghost, an event in the past that shifted their worldview and results in an inability to cope with this new worldview and address this so-called ghost. Now, this is basic psychology. People experience minor and major traumas in their lives, and coping with them is what we call life. A need then arises for humans and our written characters as well in this case, and this takes the form of wanting to fill the void created by this ghost. As such, writers call this the character's want, where the need is what would actually solve the problem, what would actually fill the void. So, to review, a character's want is the result of a character being unable to fill the void created by the ghost. They do things to satisfy their void without actually solving the problem. Whereas a character's need would be what would actually solve the problem. To give an example of the differentiation between want and need, an example of wants is usually what gets Disney princesses into trouble. Ariel gives away her voice, Elsa isolates herself in a castle, and Vanellope brings Ralph to the internet, who then proceeds to break it. In Tatooine Rhapsody, we see the ghost. We see the trauma happening for the main character. The Padawan runs away from some scary event and he becomes a musician. And we see that want there. He wants to play shows. So we see the ghost, there's some kind of attack, the Padawan runs away and becomes a musician. He has a new worldview. And we also see the want trying to fill the void created by this ghost. He wants to play shows. But the critical element in a story where a character overcomes their wants and understands their need and how to fulfill it, so how to overcome their trauma essentially, well, that usually comes in a dramatic realization. And it also usually contains the main thematic statement of the work. We get that in this episode.
In the end, we're just a band. We're just a band.
We're just a band. That is, the character realizes he's a musician, but it kind of feels inauthentic. And this is where the episode gets especially didactic. How is it that an episode that ticks all the boxes of writing craft feels empty? Well, I'd argue that it's because the episode is too short for that kind of story. A character realizing their need is a huge event, and it usually takes time, maybe even a lifetime. Because this reflects real life, I might even point out that some of us never reached that realization. And so, for this character to have reached it because after 3 interrupted shows, his buddy is captured and we don't know why, that feels incomplete. We need more backstory and relationship development between the protagonist and his friend who brought him into the band in the first place. Otherwise, the story is uncompelling. To conclude on this episode, this is a pretty decent attempt at a deep character arc, and it wins points for that, particularly when compared with the next one, episode 3, The Twins. Now, because I kind of want to criticize episode 3 as well, I thought I'd put it together with this episode, but then I realized, well, there's a lot to say, so I'm going to stop it there. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to be dropping more videos on writing tips that are not just Star Wars based, rather they're going to be based in literature, and they're going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks, so watch out for that. In the meantime, where's that pen? Don't forget to flex. This is the pen, right? Yeah, the fancy Parker pen. Don't forget to flex your writing muscles.